Welcome back, everybody. I'm Matt Hernandez, and today I'm going to show you how to make it rain. Okay, so I say this all the time, personal projects are extremely important. They're important because for me, they fuel my creativity, and I feel like that's pretty universal for other photographers too. We do something creative for a living, and we don't always get to fully do that whenever we're working for clients because we're basically chasing their vision. That's why they're hiring us. So personal projects allow you to do that on your own and have no restrictions. So it's really important because creativity is a skill. The more you do it, the better you're going to be at it, right? You're going to continue to grow throughout your entire career. And I think far too often artists and photographers don't explore new possibilities because they do get so bogged down with client work. And it's easy to do that because that's how we make our living, right? But it's good to I try to do it at least once a month, once every couple months. I don't always stick to that. Obviously, I have busy times of the year where I can't make it happen. YouTube has been a really good outlet for me because it has allowed me to do more personal projects because that's essentially what I'm doing whenever I'm recording these videos. A lot of times I'm creating shoots that I want to do. And I want to teach, you guys techniques and that kind of thing that I've learned throughout my career, but a lot of times I get to incorporate both of them on these type shoots. So that's been really fun for me. Another way you can do it if you don't do YouTube or you don't have a lot of extra time outside of client work is you can actually do it when you're on client photo shoots, as long as you're doing shoots that allow that. A couple of weeks ago when we had my workshop here at my studio in Paducah, we had a cheerleader in the studio for the first session. And one of the setups that we had was two gels, one with teal and one with orange behind her. And we used different types of atmosphere. I've talked about fog a lot on my channel here and done several videos with that. We used a smoke machine, a little handheld smoke machine, and then we also used mist, which is something I haven't talked about before, because atmosphere can be anything. It doesn't have to be fog. It can be any kind of liquid too. So I have a mister, which I have right here, that I've had for, I don't know how long I've had this. I mean, it's probably been, honestly, I would say probably 10 years, 8 to 10 years. And I don't hardly ever use it. I honestly forgot that I had it until we had the workshop and I was trying to think of something we could do creative in the studio with her. And that came to mind because I have it sitting out. I look at it every day almost and it hasn't been touched in years. That was a perfect time. So all it is, you just pump it just like that. And then you can spray it here with, I think it's meant for gardening. And just a fine mist comes out and you can actually lock it down so you can set it down and let it spray on its own. You don't have to, somebody doesn't have to hold it the whole time if you have something to set it on. And that created a really cool look behind her. And you want to light that the same way that you would light fog or smoke. You want to backlight it. You want the light to be, you want the mist or the atmosphere to be between the subject and the light. So it's going to allow it to be backlit. That's going to make it show up a whole lot better. It's like edge lighting a person. It just makes it look more three-dimensional. So I love the way that looked, and that made me think, well, maybe, we could use that on a senior shoot with an athlete and possibly make it look like it's raining outside, which would be perfect for football, which we had a football shoot. So it worked out exactly like I was hoping. If it had been a sport that wouldn't make sense to play in the rain as much, then maybe, we would have had to hold off. But football players have games in the rain all the time. So what I wanted to do was the same principle as we used in the studio. Just have it between him and the light. And I wanted to do it, I knew I was going to have to spray him first to get him, wet. Because if you can fake it in Photoshop with rain, with overlays and brushes and things like that. But if you don't actually have the model wet, then to mimic the rain that's coming down, then it's not going to look nearly as real. So when you do something like this, you want to commit to it and see it all the way through. Now you can, if it's something you think of after the fact and you want to try in your edit in Photoshop, then that's fine. But planning ahead of time is always better to make things look like this look more real. And so that's really what I wanted to talk about, was that process, how I did it, what I could have done better, and then at the end we're going to have some more content to show you how to finish it off in Photoshop during retouching, so to really sell the picture and really push it over the edge. Okay, so let's jump over here to the video and take a look. So again, this is at the end of the shoot. So if you have an idea, now this one wasn't particularly risky, but if you have an idea that's creative and different and you're not 100% sure how it's going to work or if it's going to work at all, you want to wait till the end if possible, because if it doesn't work, then you want to make sure you get your shots that they're paying you to take first and that you have time left over. Seniors are almost always going to want to do something like this if it's different, especially if it's something that you haven't really tried before. They're going to get excited about it. So when I told him, we were going to make a video of it, he loved that idea. So But you also need to warn them too that there's a possibility it may not work. Now, this wasn't one of those times, but I have tried things before where that was the case. So, just be upfront with them and tell them you've never done it before, you're not exactly sure. Just so their expectations aren't too high, but they're probably going to want to do it, I would say, almost always. Okay, so it was a little bit chilly. It wasn't too bad. He did get a little bit cold. But another tip too, if you do this, you want to mix glycerin with the water. So I use a spray bottle first. You can just get these at Walmart. They're really cheap. Maybe do like half and half, and then what that's gonna do is allow the water to bead up. So it still can dry, but it's gonna stay on them a lot longer. And you want to tell them that ahead of time to make sure that you don't ruin a uniform or something like that. Which I don't think that's going to hurt a football uniform, obviously, but there are situations where they might have clothes on that they don't want it to get on. So in that case, you might want to use water. But that's gonna help the overall look more because of the look it's going to give. It's going to give them a shiny look, and it's going to stay on there longer and not dry off as fast. So we had the spray bottle and we had the mister. So I sprayed one round, and when you do this, you want to do it all over. You want to get their arms, anything that's going to be in the picture, because it wouldn't make sense if you just did their face and then the jersey was completely dry, right? That wouldn't look great. So and it's funny too. So it like kind of adds to the experience here because it's going to make everything more fun. Unless it's freezing outside, that probably wouldn't be fun. But it wasn't too cold, so it wasn't that big a deal. So now we've got the first round of water sprayed on him, and I'm bringing in my lights. I've got two FJ400s. I started out with deep focus reflectors on both of them, and I have them cross-lit here. And I want this to be dramatic, so I'm going to have him probably looking off, turned away from me, and then I'm going to short light him, which means I'm going to have the light on the far side so that it creates more shadow, like towards the camera, and then the light's going to be on. It's going to be camera right and camera left, and they're both going to be somewhat of an edge light. The camera left light is going to be more of one, but then the right side is going to be short lit too. So, okay, so you can see the position of the lights. And I wanted to, you need to pay attention to where you're putting the subject. So I wanted him framed by those stadium lights. I wanted at least one in the background, two possibly. And I'm shooting this wide angle with my 24-70 because I want him to look big and heroic. So I'm going to get down low a little bit and shoot on the wider end just to distort everything a little bit and just make it look more dramatic. So I tested that out first, and I knew that because we are in the middle of the day, we do have the lights on, it's obviously cloudy and overcast. You want to make sure that the weather is cooperating with what you want to do, because if it was like blue skies, this clearly would not look real because it's not going to rain if there's no clouds. So this was the perfect day for it. Everything worked out good. So I tried that first, and with the two deep focus, and it was a little bit too harsh because that's very hard light, which I don't mind that. I shoot with two deep focus all the time, but I switched to the Manny Ortiz Beauty Dish, which in the middle of the day I wanted the background to be dark because I wanted it to look as stormy as possible because of what we were doing. So I had to be able to underexpose, so the modifier had to be powerful enough or reflective enough that I could get my settings high enough, keep my settings high with my light, and then keep my settings, my shutter speed and f-stop high enough to where I can get that background nice and dark. And if you want to see more on underexposure and how to do that outside, we've got a video that I've done in the past. We'll link that down below if you want to check that out too, see more in detail how to do that. So this Manny Ortiz, I took the diffusion off. It wasn't giving me what I needed. Because I had my settings first because I was exposed to the background, so I had to have the light bright enough to light him up. With the diffusion, it was too dark, so I took that off, moved it a little bit closer. So I've got that just about as close as I can get here without the modifier being in the frame. So, and it was just barely enough, and it was still a little bit underexposed. But to me, that trade-off of raising that in post, a half a stop or a full stop, is better than having the light too harsh for the look that I was going for. And it just kind of depends on what mood I'm in, honestly, whether I want hard or soft light. But today, I wanted it to be a little bit softer. I thought it just looked a little bit better. Now we've got the mister out, and you can see that. So I'm just going to hold it up in between them, like I said, and spray. And I did a test shot here just to see how it looked. I had him close his eyes, and then luckily we had his head coach, Coach Smith, was at the facility, which it was at the end of the school day, so he was teaching anyway. But he was over at the field house. Eli was filming, so we had to have a third hand. So luckily he was over on the other side of the field, and we called him over to see if he could help us out. He was glad to come help out, luckily, because I really don't know what we would have done. We probably wouldn't have got all this behind the scenes if we hadn't had his help. So I'm just kind of explaining what to do there, and now we're going to spray him down again. Just to really sell it as much as possible, because I want it to look like it's really coming down. All right, so now we're gonna. So the reason I put the helmet up on his shoulders because I wanted there to be water on the helmet too. I thought that would look really cool on the metallic, the shiny finish of the helmet with the water droplets. You know, I could have had him hold it down or something like that, but that's going to put it up by his face where I'm exposing, so that's going to make it a little bit brighter. And I thought that would really add, it would really add to it and help sell it even more because it's going to put more water in the scene on the helmet. So credit to Cohen here. He's doing a great job. It's kind of hard to hold a serious. You can see he's laughing. It's kind of hard to hold a serious face there and keep your eyes open when we're doing this because he's getting doused with water the entire time. Even though you can't really see it from the video, it was coming down pretty good. So I just tried to get every angle possible. I went horizontal the whole time because I wanted it to look cinematic, like there's a storm coming in and he's getting ready to play. You can see he's having fun. And that's another thing too. When you do something like this, it really adds to the experience of the client. And that is so important because you want them to have fun whenever they're on the shoot. And you can see, even though he's soaking wet now, it was still fun for all of us, and it was fun for his coach to do that. He made a joke about, you know, enjoying it whenever he was spraying him with the water, and you know, so everybody enjoyed the experience. And even if the pictures hadn't turned out good, that would have been cool because he would remember that. But thankfully, they did turn out cool. So now I'm going to show you what we ended up with. So let's jump over to Lightroom. Okay, so here's the first shot where there's a little bit of water. That's the first time I sprayed him with just the blue spray bottle. Not a whole lot going on there. And I sprayed him quite a bit, but you can see how much you need to make it look realistic because you can't even see his jersey. It doesn't even really look wet there. So the mister puts out a lot more, and that's the advantage to having that. And we'll link the mister down below too in the description so you guys can see that. You can get those on Amazon. So there's a picture where I'm testing. That's where I'm testing the mister out, camera left, before Coach came over. And so I can tell right there it's going to work, right? So I was hoping to get it spread out a little bit more. And now, so hindsight being 2020, I'm looking back at this and it turned out cool. But what would have made it better? Because I'm always trying to figure out what's going to improve my photography and make my work better. It would have been better if I'd had two, one on each side, and then maybe another edge light. If I'd done two edge lights, one camera, we just had one camera left, put one on camera light to match it, and have three lights, and then that would have made the water show up more, obviously, because it would have been on both sides. It would have been more even. This looks cool, but had we done that, I think it might have sold it just a little bit better. Now, I'm totally fine delivering this, and they actually haven't ordered their pictures yet, but I guarantee you they're going to love it. They're going to love them, even though there's not water over the whole frame. You know, there is a light. You don't know where that light's coming from. It kind of gives the impression that there's a stadium light back there, which there is behind him, and that's why I wanted those behind him. So that's called practical lighting, when you have a light source and then you use your light out of frame to make it look like that's lighting the subject from the source in the background or wherever it's at. Even though it's not in exactly the same place, but you can tell that tells the brain that's a stadium light somewhere, even though you can't see it because it's out of frame. Because that is the case, you know, I mean, it could feasibly be that there's just rain right there. You know, maybe it's like it's just starting to rain or something like that. So here's the shot that I finished off in Photoshop. So I actually came back to the studio, looked at the photos, and loved what we got. This was my favorite one. So that's the out of camera shot, which again, that looks cool. And you can see here, let me zoom in. You can see the helmet, all that texture on there, and you know, we got his whole uniform's wet. His arm has water on it. So it looked like it'd been raining pretty hard. The only thing was I was like, man, I wish we'd had two. So when I came back to the studio, we shot some more mist in the studio, and I created some overlays. And speaking of that, if you guys are interested in buying anything like that I create to add to your photos to kind of finish them off and add more atmosphere in post, let me know, because I'm considering making some to sell. Okay, so that's going to do it for this portion of the video. We're actually going to extend this and have a second part that's going to be available on Patreon. So if you're interested in seeing how I got this image in camera in Photoshop to look like this, which was honestly, it's easier than it looks. And you know, I use those overlays like I was talking about and some pretty basic retouching techniques. But if you want to see the process behind that, then head over to Patreon and subscribe, and you can check out that video there. We're going to have more content being put up on there too, exclusive for members only, that's going to have extra stuff like this and, you know, tips. We're going to have full shoots. There's going to be a lot of behind the scenes, that kind of thing. We're still going to have normal YouTube videos like we always do, but we're going to have extra on Patreon. So be sure and check that out. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. I hope it inspires you to do a creative personal shoot soon, because that's, you know, like I said, that's definitely a skill that we need to sharpen and make better and always try to grow. So if you did get something out of it, then I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell so you see more content whenever we post it. There's going to be a lot more to come. Thanks for watching.